You could watch this episode and think the moral of the day was just don't watch. That's the first. That's the first blooper for sure. Oh, that is a Freudian slip. Oh boy. You could watch this episode and think the moral of the day was just don't watch. Okay, let's try to move on from that. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel episode review. Well, here we are. We have reached the 8th episode of Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel, which means that this is going to be the impression of this show that we hold in our hearts and our minds for months and months and months until the show finally comes back in late summer. Has this show finally learned to work with the hiatus, or is this going to be just another episode? Let's find out by taking a look at the 8th episode of Super Ninja Steel, Caught Red-Handed. The Rangers are in class and Principal Hastings is talking to them. This kind of confused me at first, but it looks like it's not class, it's actually the meeting for a field trip. It's time for the annual camping trip. You know, the one that's held just a little while after the annual tennis match. Anyway, Principal Hastings loves camping. She tells the class that they're going to have to find their campsite using compasses. They get little cheap, flimsy plastic ones, of course, but she shows off her own, an antique one that her grandmother used. Brody says that his grandfather had one just like that, and he used to play with it sometimes. I'll bet his grandfather was Earth's greatest navigator. Then Victor and Monty come walking in. Yay. But I actually realized something here. Victor and Monty are always late for whatever they're showing up to. Dramatic entrances, sure, but usually it's school, so they're late. They tell the class about the urban legend of the Summer Cove rhino. A rhino, you say? A large rhino that escaped from the zoo a long time ago and has been harassing campers ever since. Not, you know, hurting or killing them, of course, because Power Rangers. It's their intention to catch the rhino, increasing their fame to even higher levels than the Power Rangers. Monty made a net gun to accomplish this, and in showing it off, it of course starts going haywire and netting everything in sight. When that little bit of chaos is over and Hastings has banned the two from the camping trip, giving them detention instead, she notices that her antique compass is gone. They search around for it and see it sitting inside Brody's bag. Hastings asks Brody how it got there, but he has no idea. Victor and Monty accuse him of stealing it. Monty says Brody was talking about his grandfather's compass and how much he enjoyed playing with it, and the incident with the nets gave him an opportunity. Was Monty in the room yet when Brody talked about his grandfather's compass? Despite this not making one bit of sense, especially since if Brody had intended to steal the compass, wouldn't he have, I don't know, hidden it and not just set it on top of his open bag for everyone to see? Hastings buys this hook, line, and sinker. She jumps to conclusions, which is something I could swear the show just told us was wrong. Anyway, she gives Brody a choice. He can either admit that he was trying to steal the compass, or he can get detention and miss the camping trip. Honorably, Brody says he will not admit to something that he did not do. Detention, in this case, is apparently sitting alone in an empty classroom with no teacher while the other students go camping the entire day? Hastings says there's a camera out in the hallway, so they better not even think of walking through that door. What if they have to pee? Are they allowed to go home? What is happening? The other Rangers offer to stay with Brody since this is some grade A garbo, But he says, no, go ahead, go camping, go have fun. He'll be fine. It's not like he ever got to go camping. He spent 10 years of his life as a slave on an alien spaceship. On the Warrior Dome, Cosmo introduces Rygor, the third galactic ninja to take the stage. Wait a second. They're using the rhino monster this week? Oh my goodness, what a surprise. Rygor's gimmick as the master of surprises is to roll a giant, inflatable, and incredibly cheap-looking die. And yes, Ninja Steel, that is called a die. A single die, not a dice, as multiple characters constantly and annoyingly called it throughout this episode. Though I will admit that I made that mistake recently myself in a Hyperforce review. The number on the die determines the attack that he uses, so it truly is random. As soon as everyone else has left, Victor and Monty start escaping detention by crawling through a ceiling tile. Brody tells them that they were told not to leave, but Monty points out a technicality. They were only told not to leave through that door. You know, I know for almost a fact that I'm reading way too much into this, more than was intended in the writing, but I really just got this sense of morality frustration from Brody. He's doing the right thing, so he's stuck there, but the two of them get to go because they don't care about doing what's right. The students arrive at their campsite and start setting things up, but the Rangers almost immediately get a call from Mick reporting that there are buzz cams in the area, so they go to investigate what's going on. Brody gets the same call, and I mean, when it's the fate of the world versus obeying your superiors at school, yeah, he makes for the ceiling tile as well, obeying the same technicality. The Forest Rangers check out the woods, and they see Rygor's cheap-looking die. I mean, seriously, I know this thing was the thing they used in the Ninja footage, but it just looks terrible. They should have just used some CGI instead. He walks up and sees that it landed on a 3, so he uses a steam attack from his kettle. The Rangers are able to dodge it, they instamorph and attack. Victor and Monty get there, see the Rangers fighting a rhino-themed monster, and of course assume that this is the Summer Cove Rhino, because that's what normal, if giant, rhinos look like. They think that the Rangers are trying to steal their thunder. Their Dino Thunder? Rygor knocks all of the Rangers down, so Victor and Monty take their opportunity to step in front. I will say, with all of my problems with Victor and Monty's character, they hardly ever hesitate to step in front of actual monsters, so kudos for that at the very least. However, plot convenience keeps the net Monty fires at the monster from actually opening, so he just catches it, throws it back at them where it now opens and nets them, and then throws them far, far away. And they land right on Principal Hastings' tent, which he just finished setting up, because of course. Rygor rolls again and gets a 4, exploding jacks. Sarah says, he seems to use a different attack every time he rolls the die. Very good, Sarah! This is when Brody shows up, appearing from behind a camouflage banner and stealing the bag of jacks. He then throws them back at Rygor, and this chases him off. They demorph, and Calvin says that Brody should stay with them and camp like he was going to. But Brody says the only way that he could do that would be to admit that he was trying to steal the compass, and his integrity is worth more than a camping trip. Meanwhile, Victor and Monty try to explain to Principal Hastings that they were trying to save everyone from the Summer Cove Rhino. She doesn't believe them at first, of course, but they say they have proof, because Monty was recording the whole thing. She looks at the video on his digital camcorder and suddenly declares that they have to return to the school right now. Hastings returns to the classroom with Victor and Monty, and fortunately, Brody has already made it back. She shows him the video from Monty's camcorder of the net incident earlier in the day, which, when slowed down and magnified, shows that the nets somehow knocked her compass halfway across the classroom into Brody's bag. She is impressed that not only was he not lying about trying to steal the compass, but he would not lie even when it meant that he would be allowed to go on the trip. That was something that kind of tripped me up about this episode. Hastings was really implying pretty strongly that if Brody had just admitted he was trying to steal the compass, he wouldn't have been punished for that. She gives him the compass for some reason. She says that every act of honesty deserves a reward, but this is a family heirloom of hers, her family. Isn't that a little bit much? And of course, he gets to go camping. So what about Victor and Monty? She watched the tape, right? She saw them bravely standing up to a monster, right? No, actually she didn't. The video cuts off after the net incident. So you're telling me that Monty, a technical nerd, forgot to press record? Really? Brody gets to the campsite and the Rangers are happy, but then Rygor attacks again, and now he has size for some reason. The Rangers morph and fight again, but Rygor has a tough, leathery skin that's very hard for them to make any serious impacts on. Preston faces him off, and Rygor rolls again, getting a 5. Freeze hammer, which I think froze Preston in place right away and allowed Rygor to hit him with the hammer instead of that name, implying that the hammer would be the thing that did the freezing moving on. Brody says that 6 Rangers just aren't going to be enough this time, and it's time to use the Ninja Clone Star. Okay, cool, so now there'll be 8 Rangers, and 3 of them will be Red Rangers. Or, this time, the Clone Star will clone the entire team, despite Brody being the only one to actually use it. One of the teams fires lasers at Rygor, the other team catches the lasers with their swords and uses them to power up their steel slashes, which finish him off. Cosmo gigantifies him, but it's another one of those cases where he has to talk the audience into cheering enough to actually do it. Brody goes straight for the Ultra Zord again, and Calvin takes the center position in the cockpit because this is a Brody episode, but Brody's up there on top of the thing, and Calvin being in the center is some footage that they were able to reuse. Rygor spins his giant die in his hands and says it landed on 2. Mega firecracker explosion. The Rangers decide they're not really interested in seeing exactly what that is and activate their finishing move, destroying him. His ninja medallion flies down to the ground. Odious doesn't catch this one, but she does grab it. She's feeling a little bit impatient, deciding not to let Venema take her own turn on the show. Although maybe as a fellow female, she didn't want to see Venema get destroyed by the Rangers? Girl power? And just has Madonna bring her down, and they bully her into giving up her ninja medallion, so now Odious has all 4. So, what does she want with these things anyway? She uses some of her magic to combine 4 of the Foxbots into a robot called Foxatron. Madonna then returns to the Galaxy Warrior stage and tells the audience the show is not over yet. She uses the Gigantifier to grow the robot into a true Zord. Odious boards it and installs the ninja medallions, which power it up. The Rangers try to attack the Zord, but none of their attacks can get through. Odious then releases some Fox drones that break the Ultra Zord up into its 3 Megazords. The Ninja Steel and Bull Rider Megazords try their finishers, but nothing gets through, just like before. Foxatron slashes them, and they break apart into their component Zords, sending the Rangers flying down to the ground and demorphing them. Preston tries summoning his Zord again, but their Zord stars have been burnt, indicating that their Zords are badly damaged. So it's down to just Brody, but his attacks aren't getting through either, and after another wave of drones, the Lionfire Zord is seemingly destroyed. I mean, seriously, unlike the other Zords, it actually falls backwards and explodes. Brody falls to the ground as well, demorphed, and his Zord star is also burnt as well. So, the Ninja Steel Rangers are kind of screwed. But as Odious begins to walk Foxatron into the city, it loses power and shuts down. Odious leaves the Zord, and the Rangers hide. Our heroes, everybody! Madonna returns as well, and Odious demands to know from Venema why the medallion stopped powering the Zord. Venema says the medallions just need to be recharged. Odious asks how long that's going to take. Venema says it will take 1 day. So they leave, and Brody says that the Rangers have 1 day to figure out how to stop them. However, this is an episode of Neo Saban Power Rangers leading into the hiatus, so obviously they wrap this up really quickly and we just get left on a totally resolved plot for 6 months. So let's find out how that happens. So what? Excuse me? Are we sure this is right? To be continued? Oh dear Zordon, they finally figured it out. We are actually going into the hiatus on a major cliffhanger. Let's throw stars, baby! Episode 8, Caught Red-Handed. Pros, a moral plot that was actually kind of complex, a refreshing ongoing plot arc, and a hiatus cliffhanger. Cons, another disconnected plot episode, Rygor was surprisingly unthreatening, and a missed opportunity in the moral plot. A deep, loud gasp from Ninja Steel, a real quality spike. Caught Red-Handed gets a 4 out of 5. You could watch this episode and get the idea that the moral of the day was just don't lie. But it's not. Brody is accused of lying, but he was telling the truth. He's given the opportunity to lie to get what he wants, but he still doesn't. The moral of the episode is actually tell the truth even when lying will benefit you and you can get away with it. I mean, heck, the audience even knows that Victor and Monty were telling the truth. Sort of. This is the 3rd episode of the Galactic Ninjas arc, and it's just finally nice to say that Ninja Steel has an arc and not just 2 episodes connected by a flimsy plot point right in the middle of them. It's not the stuff of Time Force or RPM, obviously, but like I said, a continuing, ongoing, multi-episode arc is just something really nice to have for this season. We got some nice payoff to this arc so far with Foxytron, and we know from the To Be Continued, and the fact that Wolverine and Venema are still around, that this arc is going 1 more episode at least. And yes, it's still hard to believe that I'm actually saying these words, but we have an honest-to-goodness cliffhanger leading into the hiatus. This is only something I've been begging for since I started reviewing Power Rangers. If you're going to insist on taking the show away from us for months at a time, up to half of a year, give us a reason to want the show back. How can the Rangers deal with Foxytron when Foxytron defeated their Ultra Zord and right now they don't even have any of their Zords? I'm actually looking forward to seeing what happens in August, right after I get back from Power Morphicon. Ooh, did I let that little bit of information slip? However, there are of course still some flaws. I mean, I did give the episode a 4 and not a 5, and there's a reason for that. And unfortunately, 2 of them are problems that just keep popping up in this arc that I praise the show for having. The first is just this big disconnect between the human plot and the Ranger plot. Rygor's only connection to the human side of the plot is Victor and Monty. Need I say more? This is an issue that Ninja Steel has had. They just can't seem to find a way to let the Ranger plot and the human plot meld naturally. Speaking of Rygor, he felt just as unthreatening as Wolverine, and perhaps even more so. You have this gigantic rhino-themed monster, and his gimmick is rolling a giant inflatable Party City die to randomly decide what attack he's going to do. Even when he was pushing the Rangers around, he didn't feel like a threat. Just felt like a monster they had to get out of the way to get to the interesting stuff. This one's going to seem kind of interesting, and I know some of you are going to disagree with me. I've had some conversations with a couple of fellow reviewers, and they disagreed with me. But there was something, a little quirk in the moral with Brody that I was waiting to see happen, but it's not something they actually did. The whole thing with the principal learning the truth about what happened to the compass and coming back to Brody to apologize, saw all of that coming from a mile away. But here's the thing. Brody left the classroom. Yes, he had a very good reason to do so, but he still left. I was waiting for Hastings to come back to the classroom, see the truth about what happened with him, and to tell him that he could go on the camping trip, but for him to say, actually, Miss Hastings, I have to admit that I left the classroom. I had a very good reason for it, but unfortunately it's private and I can't talk about it. But I left the classroom and you didn't want us to leave the classroom, so I really think I should just stay here. I realized that this would mean that Brody was being punished for being a Power Ranger, but you know what? In a real world that has superheroes in it, sometimes those heroes are going to get punished for being heroes and doing the right thing. Brody did the exact same thing that Victor and Monty did, and he got away with it. Victor and Monty, for their part, were only caught because they faced off against a monster and ended up getting thrown right in Hastings' face. Kind of funny how those things work out. In the end, I would like to see Super Ninja Steel work on cohesion between its human and Ranger plots after the hiatus, something that its favorite mentor, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, seemed to do pretty well. But in the end, this is an episode that, while it wasn't as good as the sum of its parts, it had some pretty nice parts. This is normally where I'd say let's take a peek at the 9th episode of Super Ninja Steel, but of course we're half a year away from seeing that, international spoilers notwithstanding. However, a new script writing technique I've been using has gotten these videos way shorter than they used to be, almost about half in some cases. So I'm going to go ahead and tuck this in here instead of doing it in a separate video as I have before. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for me to announce the theme for the next set of hiatus videos. However, if you follow me on Twitter, you may have already caught a couple of hints that I dropped about it. I've talked about drawing out the excitement, and also wondered if I could frame my excitement for it properly. Drawing. Frames. Yep, that's right. You see, to me, the length of this hiatus is always so long that it's just ridiculous, crazy, insane, silly. In fact, you could say that it's downright comical. So, after taking a few weeks to finally finish off that previous set of hiatus videos, and if I edited the videos that I've shot today in order, you should have already gotten my 4th Q&A, I am going to be starting a comically long hiatus where I will finally be taking the time to review the Boom Studios Power Rangers comic books and catch up on that series in a major way. No top 10 lists, no topical videos. Just reviewing as many of those comics as I can get done. And there's another little change with this hiatus. I once had a viewer suggest that I maybe not make schedules for hiatus videos, since it raises expectations for the videos and then they fall behind and people wonder where they are, and etc, etc. I kind of took that to heart, actually, and I do feel kind of burned by the concept of making schedules for these videos. I can't be sure what days they're going to come out, what opportunities I'm going to have to upload them, how many I can get done in a week, etc, etc. So this hiatus is not going to have a formal schedule. I'm just going to get the videos done when I can. I will say that I'm not going to leave you totally wondering what comics I'm going to review next. I'm going to give you the opportunity to decide if you want to tune in or not by announcing the next comics I'm going to be reviewing at the end of the previous video. For example, in this video, I can tell you that the first comically hiatus video is going to be an ending and a beginning, as I'm going to be reviewing MMPR Pink issue number 5 and number 6, and Go-Go Power Rangers issue number 1 and number 2. However, as I said, I still have a few more hiatus videos to get out of the way first for the off-season of hiatus. And it's time for you folks to vote on what I guess is going to be the last top 10 list for a while. We all know that Mighty Morphin Power Rangers became such a big, worldwide, global success that companies were falling all over themselves to try to catch that lightning in a bottle and duplicate it for their own success, leading to a number of Power Rangers knockoffs and spin-offs. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that I think, by my count, there were only about 10, and even that might be stretching it a little, But I'm still going to give you the opportunity to vote, and hey, your votes might reveal some shows to me that I never even thought of as Power Rangers knockoffs and spin-offs. So, in the comments below, give me your vote for your favorite Power Rangers knockoff or spin-off. I'm going to be clear here and say that basically everything that you would consider Power Rangers knockoff or spin-off is on the table. I will say that it does need to be live action, not talking about something like Voltron or anything like that where it's animated. I'm just talking about live action shows because that's the inspiration that people took to try to replicate the amazing success that MMPR was. You can count official Saban products like VR Troopers and Masked Rider and Mystic Knights of Tir-na-nog, you know, and other shows that other companies made to try to duplicate that success as well, such as Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad or Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills. So get to voting! I'm talking too much about it already. Dag nab. And so it is farewell for now to the Super Ninja Steel episode reviews for a good while here. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching. Make sure to like the video by clicking the like button right down below. In the comments below, let me know what you thought of this episode, Caught Red-Handed, and what you thought of my review of the episode. Make sure you're subscribed to Orange Ranger videos to see all of my videos as soon as they come out. You can definitely do that by ringing the bell so you are notified of when I release videos, just like these Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel episode reviews, even though they're gone for a while. So, off-season of hiatus videos, a comically long hiatus videos, and anything else that I end up releasing. And if you deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate my work and want to toss me a little financial support, head over to digitaltipjar.com/orangerangervid. Toss a little bit of tip change in that jar, and I appreciate anything that lands inside. Until next time, heroes, may the power protect you. Honorably, he says he will not admit to something that he did not do. Farts. So it truly is random. I want to spray the Rangers with steam from my kettle. All right, roll a d6. Shh. Check the woods out, and they see Ryogre's cheap... Ryogre. It's Rygor. So he uses a steam attack from his kettle, but the Rangers are able to easily... Oh, God. And unfortunately, 2 of them are plot problems. However, of course, there are still some flaws, by the way. Speaking of Rygor, he felt even less threatening than Wolverine. Speaking of Rygor, he felt even...